it's Good Friday, which is always interesting because what the church remembers today, if you're a person outside the church and you don't understand what the outcome of all this is, to hear the church recount the story of the unjust execution of the person that we say we follow doesn't sound like it would be a very good thing. But you also have to remember that, like the saying goes, it may be Friday, but Sunday's coming. And I'll just leave it at that. Tomorrow you can go online and read all the texts that we have for today. I'm not going to list those out, but there's a lot of them for Good Friday. You can look on our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and you can find those readings and hot links to them. Maybe not so much on Instagram. It doesn't seem to want to do that, but I know on Twitter and Facebook. And then we'll also post the readings for Saturday, Holy Saturday, and then also for Easter Sunday. So if you're new to all this, you can read along with this, and you can see why we actually call this Good Friday. Like I said, there's a lot of texts for Good Friday. The text from the Gospel alone is very large. It's 2 chapters of John, and so because I can't really cover that. And also, hopefully you'll find a church to watch online, since we're in the middle, at this time, we're in the middle of the COVID epidemic, so that has thrown everything by the wayside as far as the way the church usually celebrates this day. So I encourage you to go online this evening and find a Good Friday service. There will be plenty streaming. If you can't find them live, you can watch them again later, but check Facebook as your first place to go. And look up YouTube. You could probably put in Good Friday services and find some. But today, because there's so much, I just want to focus on really a couple of verses out of here, and I want to talk about this idea of friends that we see here in chapter 19, verse 12 and 13. I want to start though by talking about, you remember, how important the cool kids were when, you were like middle school, even high school. And a lot of adults don't ever really seem to have gotten past the idea of the cool kids and wanting to please the cool kids. It's that idea, and the problem with that is too, that sometimes we can get so caught up in pleasing the cool kids, or wanting to be with them and have them think that we're awesome too, and having them be our friends, that we will tend to make bad decisions to keep those friends happy. In other words, you want to do things to keep your friends happy, even if that means that you might not be happy or other people might not be happy, people that really actually do matter to you in the long run, or people that really do care about you in the long run. You might do things that might not make them very happy in order to make the cool kids happy, right? That was kind of our the common experience for a lot of people in childhood. It wasn't that different in the ancient world. As a matter of fact, it was probably a little bit more magnified. Maybe and possibly still not that different today. But in the ancient world, this idea of friends, keeping people your friends, was really, really important. In the ancient Near East, that like we're talking about, this is ancient Near East is the way you would describe the world that Jesus was living in. Maybe 1st century. Ancient Near East is a little bit older than that. But the Mediterranean world of the 1st century, we're talking about, the friends we're talking about is not the, like, I'll be there for you, that kind of friends. It's not there. That might be part of it. They might come to your aid, but not like that we think of it. So being friends in that world, it was about who has what you need, or who has what, or who can get you what you need. In other words, who has the power, who has the resources, who has wealth, and above all that, who has access to that. They might not have it themselves that much, but they have access to it. Or they have access to the truly powerful, the truly wealthy people, the people with lots of resources. And those are the people you want to be friends with. Those are the people you want to make happy. You sure as heck don't want them to be your enemies. You want to make them happy. And so that's where we come to here with chapter 19, verses 12 and 13. Jesus has been arrested. He has come before the priests, Annas and Caiaphas, and they send him to Pilate because they want Pilate to pronounce him guilty, and they want Pilate to do their dirty work. They want him to kill them. And so he's kind of hemmed and hawed, and he's tried to get out of it. And so this is where we're at right here. He says in verse 19:11, he says, verse 12 rather, he says, from then on Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are no friend of the emperor. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself against the emperor." Now, before you feel like bad for Pilate and think that he's actually a good guy just caught in a bad situation, Pilate is not that innocent. If you want to know some more accounts about Pilate that are outside the Bible, you look up a guy named Josephus. He was a Jewish historian that wrote a big, huge collection of histories and talks about all this. And he talks about Pilate. Pilate was not really well thought of in the ancient world. He's a jerk. He's the Roman governor of Palestine at that time. So he's not that innocent. And really, he was all about, just long story short, he was all about having power, gaining power, and maintaining it. Matter of fact, Luke, in Luke's Passion narrative, verse 23 and 5, chapters 23, verse 5, we get this story because Pilate is fed up in the whole deal with Jesus, and he sends him off to Herod. Herod was the vassal king of the Jewish people at the time. The only reason he was in power is because the Romans had put him in power, right? So he ruled at the behest of Rome, at the behest of Caesar. And so he had to keep friends with Caesar as well. And so it says that Pilate sends him to Herod, and we're told in 23, it says that Herod mocked him by dressing Jesus in elegant clothes and sent him back to Pilate. Pilate and Herod became friends with each other that day. Before this, they had been enemies. So Pilate's the kind of guy, just pretty much the same kind of guy as Herod, and these two guys who hate each other become united over their shared contempt for Jesus. That in a lot of, it hasn't changed much. I'm stuttering a lot today. I apologize. I'll try to do better. It really hasn't changed much in this day and age. So Pilate hears this term, "You are no friend of the emperor," and it scares the stuff out of him. It says when Pilate, in this verse 13 of chapter 19, when Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside and sat on the judge's bench at a place called the Stone Pavement, or in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now, here you get this guy, he doesn't really want to make this decision. It's not because he cares for Jesus, he just realizes he's getting caught up in this power struggle that he doesn't feel like really benefits him, and until it's put in this perspective for him, that this guy is claiming kingship, and therefore he is running against Caesar, who is the king of the world, for lack of a better term, emperor at that time. And so, you're no friend of the emperor. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself against the emperor. Caesar was the power in the world at that time, and happiness for everyone, especially Pilate, meant maintaining that friendship with him at all costs. Pilate knew it, Herod knew it, the priests knew it, and the Pharisees knew it. They knew that Caesar was the big dog on the block, and they were willing to yield to him to maintain their happiness and their little control of power. Because not Herod, sorry, Caesar. Caesar was at the top, and in their way of thinking, everything flows downhill. Lots of stuff flow downhill. But they were willing to play God with Caesar is basically what it amounted to. This guy, this little self-proclaimed God, they were willing to play that with him and acknowledge his deity, bow down to him, bow their heads to him in order to maintain their little bit of the world that they controlled. They were willing to bow before the prince of this world just to maintain their little bit of turf is basically what it boils down to. So because of that, they were willing to send God's anointed to his death. They were willing to send the one to their death who had healed the sick, who had caused the lame to walk, who had made the blind to see, who had cleansed the lepers, who had cast out demons, who had proclaimed liberty to a captive people, just so they could be friends with some little self-appointed God and be at peace. This is the way that true darkness falls. And this is the way that darkness falls on Good Friday. So, this is Good Friday, and I won't see you again till Monday, the Monday after Easter. So, read your Bible this weekend. Read the scriptures for Holy Week, and we'll see you again Monday. And it'll be a different world.